Can you hear me?
Ciao Matteo, hi, how are you?
Hi Giuliano, very well, thank you. What about you?
Everything is fine. I'm just checking if Silvia is online or not.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but unfortunately I cannot see you, but probably the other people can see you.
Okay.
I can see Silvia actually.
Matteo? Ah,
I can see
okay,
you. I can see you.
perfect.
Yes,
Okay.
just Silvia, I don't know, have a little bit, probably the sound is too loud, so if you can a little bit distance
Okay.
yourself or something like that. Okay, we are waiting for Kaitlyn. She should be online. Okay, I have probably her request. Okay. So everyone will be online probably. So Kaitlyn. Okay.
Hello.
Hi Kaitlyn.
Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep my microphone off because I'm still out and about in public too. But
Okay. Okay. So wait a minute that we will start. So if everyone is here, is online, so we have Matteo, we have Silvia, we have Kaitlyn, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, unfortunately I cannot see Silvia, I don't know why, but okay, it's not a problem.
I can see everyone.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with this Instagram live. I'm really happy, really glad that everyone accept our invitation. I'm Gianno Bifolchi, Research Manager at SpecialEurasia. I will be the host of this Instagram live. We have with us Silvia Boltuc, Managing Director of SpecialEurasia. Hi Silvia again.
Hi everyone.
We have also Matteo Meloni, who is the Editor-in-Chief of TocToc Sardegna. He's a journalist, Italian journalist. Hi Matteo.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure as always. And last but not least, we have also Kaitlyn Rabe, who is the Vice President of Mondo Internazionale. Hi Kaitlyn.
good evening.
So just an information, because of work, Kaitlyn should leave us, around half an hour. So at one point we will lose Kaitlyn. So unfortunately, so we'll try just to exploit Kaitlyn, as we can. So yeah. So first of all, we decided to organize this Instagram live on Morocco and Western Sahara because both Silvia and Matteo and Kaitlyn had the opportunity to visit the region, the area. They had an official visit before to Agadir, and then they went to the city and the province of Dakhla, and they had the opportunity to to assess the situation on the ground. Some remarks. So we call Western Sahara just because in Europe and also in Italy we have this definition, but we know that Rabat's authorities call this part of the region as the southern part of Morocco. And we are not, what we are trying to do here now is just to analyze the situation without put any kind of, pro or against stance. No pro or against Morocco, pro against Polisario Front or Algeria. We don't want to do this. We just want to analyze the situation to provide an assessment, a risk assessment, a humanitarian assessment, and political and economic assessment to our listeners and followers. So first of all, I will ask different questions to our guest speakers. I believe that the order will be Silvia, Kaitlyn, Matteo. Okay, it's fine for you. Just remind 3-4 minutes for your answer, if it could be possible. So my first question is for Silvia, just to provide us an overview regarding the geopolitical situation of Morocco and the area.
Yes, hi everyone again. Thanks for being here today with us. I would say that one of the main assets of Morocco is a stable government, as it is a stable constitutional monarchy, which is not so usual in Africa, as when you want to establish a partnership with an African country, one of the main problems often is that they constantly change government, while with Morocco you have a very stable internal political situation right now. Another main positive aspect of the country is the strategic location at the crossroad of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. We have in the southern and eastern part of the country the Sahara Desert, but in the north and the western part, its coastlines are on both the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, which constitutes a very positive aspect for the interest and for international trade of the country. Morocco shared a very long border with Algeria. We are talking about more or less 1,500 kilometers. And we have to say that due to unresolved tension with this neighboring country, of course, there have been some diplomatic friction, let's say, with this country. And if we consider even the western part, the Western Sahara part of Morocco, which is not internationally recognized, we have also to say that there is quite the same length a border with Mauritania. Morocco has some very strategic alliances with major powers such as the United States and Israel, which provide Morocco with enhanced defense capabilities. Indeed, they have facilitated substantial military cooperation, including aid, training programs, and innovative military technologies, of course. When we look at the negative aspect of the country, we can talk, for example, about limited infrastructure in rural areas. What I discovered when I was there was particularly a lack of medical services. Of course, the country is trying to fix this issue, but it will take time and, of course, investments. We have a security risk connected to terrorism, which is quite common in Africa, particularly in the country which are in the Sahel area. And we have, let's say, regional instability, again, due to tension with Algeria over the disputed territories of Western Sahara, because Algeria is supporting the Polisario Front, and therefore the, let's say, the request of the Sahrawi population of self-determination. And the last thing that I will add is that Morocco is trying, which is to implement some infrastructure. We have the chance to visit the Dakhla port, and I think this has also a geopolitical impact because this will be, in the King's vision, a gateway for Sahel countries to the Atlantic front. And so, therefore, in mind maintains Morocco position even with countries like Mali, Chad, and Niger.
Thanks, Silvia. Thanks for this overview. And you mentioned the fact that Morocco has these diplomatic relations with the United States and Israel. And we have a Kaitlyn who is like a USA citizen, and also we can try to, to take advantage and ask her more about the relation between Morocco and the United States, also the Washington stance regarding the situation in the so-called Western Sahara.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the funniest things that happened while I was there is every time I mentioned my nationality, like people would consistently say, like, "Oh, the USA, Morocco, I've been friends for a really long time," which is true. And it's actually, I think more Moroccans are aware of the fact that Morocco was the first country to recognize the USA as a country back in the day than Americans are. So people, from what I saw, it was definitely kind of like common knowledge that the USA and Morocco historically, share a quote unquote friendship or like a positive relationship. But going back into the history of the Saharan conflict, let's say, like historically, the USA was considered to be officially on a diplomatic level a more neutral actor, whereas in reality, in the past, the USA would also supply Morocco with effectively, how can I say, like equipment to be able to keep the Sahara conflict under control. It was in late 2020, so in November, that it was almost like it was actually after the November 2020 elections had already been counted, after those weeks of counting and waiting, that Donald Trump decided to recognize the Western Sahara as a part of Morocco. basically in exchange for Moroccan normalization of relationships with Israel. Um, so at this point, in the U.S.'s point of view, if you go onto the CIA World Factbook, if you go onto the U.S. Department of State's website, the map of Morocco actually includes the entire area. So what is internationally recognized as Morocco, as well as what they would call the southern provinces of Morocco, or as what anybody who is going by quote unquote international law would call it Western Sahara. Um, but yeah, so it was really interesting also just on a population level, talking to the people, like that level of understanding or that level of consciousness and awareness that, and how much people wanted to impress upon me that the USA and Morocco have had a very, like, how can I say, positive historical relationship.
Thanks. Thanks, Catherine. So, Matteo, talking about international relations and just to have a broad overview, I would like to talk more about your perception or your idea of Italy-Morocco relations, also European Union-Morocco relations, also what you perceive from on the ground when you were there.
Well, Morocco is getting more and more important in this right now international relations landscape, especially because of the Abraham Accords that somehow Morocco has signed together with the United States and Israel, so recognizing themselves together as countries, actually. So this is very important also, in the shape of what has to be the relation of this country also with the European Union and also with Italy, of course. But our country, with our country, I'm talking about Italy, of course, is playing somehow a double game because they have and want to have a strong relation with Morocco, but not losing also, the good relation that we have with Algeria. It is quite an important partner of Italy because of everyone knows about it. It's an issue linked to the energy field, and so we have to understand how we have to balance the position of Rome together with the position of Morocco, the international relation and international law issues that are very important, of course, to understand, because the fact that, for example, the United Nations has already asked the Moroccan authorities to hold a referendum for the independence of the Western Sahara is quite important in today's landscape. I repeat it because, we are living right now a quite difficult period on the international arena. We see what is happening between Israel and the Palestinians somehow in Gaza. We already know that they have been somehow asked to stop some issues linked to the war they are waging towards Gaza, but no one wants to respect it, although there are international organizations asking for it. So going back to Morocco, it's more or less the same issue. There's no war in this case. There's not an open war as the one we are seeing in Israel and in Gaza. But of course, we have to understand that there's a law, there's an international law, so one has to respect it if we want to improve our lives as human beings and as citizens of this world. So the position of Morocco has to follow the international rules, and countries such as Italy and the European Union are in the position of quite difficulty to understand and to analyze what is their future and their future, especially with Morocco and the relations with Algeria, because of the Frente Polisario position being in the inside country of Algeria. So, it's a quite difficult position for everyone, I think, right now. But I think that as a human being that we have to follow the rules, because if there are rules, we must follow them.
Thanks, Matteo. So, going back to Silvia, as we know, probably people who follow SpecialEurasia, we produce report as SWOT analysis regarding Morocco. We produce different report regarding also the DACH report and the region. So, Silvia, can you provide us more information regarding, economic opportunities and pro and cons of investing in Morocco, the DACH line, the infrastructures? Also provide us more information because you both of you were on the ground, had the opportunity to see something that we can just read on paper.
Yes, well, I think that Morocco is trying to capitalize on the sector that have more potential inside the country, and I'm referring to, of course, tourism, the mining sector, which is vital for the country, fishery-related industry, infrastructure, major infrastructure as the Dakhla port, and of course even the agricultural sector. I would start from the mining sector, since you asked me, the very first question was about geopolitics, and I think that the mining sector has also helped Morocco gain some geopolitical leverage in the global arena. Particularly, we are talking about the large reserve of phosphate that Morocco has. It is estimated that Morocco has more or less 70% of the global reserve of these resources, which is very huge, and the demand is growing worldwide, and it accounts for 50% of Morocco GDP. And why is this important? Because, of course, the major consumers of the phosphate are the countries which have a large agricultural sector. And who are these countries? The United States, China, India, Brazil, Indonesia. So powerful country, but also country which have a very fast-growing population. So for this reason, of course, Morocco will be able to have this political leverage on these international actors. It has also, of course, a strong agricultural sector, growing tourism. The tourism is really increasing fast, at the point that they had some difficulties in manage all these people coming. Again, it is estimated that Morocco is the country among all the African countries with the most tourist arrival, even more than Egypt, which is quite huge, actually. Another important thing is the economic modernization that Morocco has started. Why this? Because I think that I understood that the future lies in the green revolution that we see, the shifting. The shift of all the global powers toward more eco-friendly policies. And for this reason, the Dakhla port is particularly important, since they want to concentrate on storage and exportation of green hydrogen. So they want the port to be completely dedicated to green energy and not to petrochemical products. Even the political effort of Morocco to extend itself to the tropic seamount aim to unlock resources critical for managing industry, such as electrical vehicles and solar energy. Indeed, we have in Morocco one of the biggest solar power plant of the continent. And last, of course, through the Dakhla port, but not only this, Morocco is trying to attract foreign direct investment in the tourist field, but also in the Dakhla port and other important regional infrastructure, as he wants to establish the country as a logistic hub for transcontinental trade, particularly again, as I told before, for Sahel country, which are landlocked country, and it want to establish a corridor through Mauritania to reach the Atlantic front, and therefore open trade even to the South American countries. And not last, I want also to mention the agreement with the European Union about fishery, which was quite controversial, actually, because allowed some European countries to fish in the disputed areas coast in front of of Western Sahara. But on the other side, again, this will help, of course, Morocco gain some consensus, some sympathies among European countries, and therefore probably this will help Morocco to gain recognition over its rule on Western Sahara. Probably. Again, the same can be said with Sahel country. If they will have benefit from this corridor through the Dakhla port, of course, they might be willing to recognize Morocco rule too. Although I have to say, and I conclude, that African Union has also recognized the Polisario Front, and so not all the countries are willing to do that.
Thanks, Silvia. Thanks. So I should say that I've been to Morocco 3 times for your official visit. The first time was around 10 years ago, and I had the opportunity to visit Morocco in different times. And the last time was probably 1 year and a half ago. I could see the difference, particularly in the capital Rabat, but also in other cities like Casablanca, Marrakech, Fez. have been striving a lot to modernize and to give also a fresh look. But going back to these issues regarding economic development, I would like to ask to Kaitlyn, so what are the opportunities and challenges regarding the sustainable development and economic investment in the area? Your opinion, your perception.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I can talk about is some of the things that we saw there. I mean, it seems like more what I would like to talk about is sort of the connection that I saw between, I think, the human rights and sustainable development. It seems like there's some sort of recognition that there is like a nexus between these two things, at least on the surface. For example, some of the things that the representative at the Regional Investment Center spoke to us about were their actual plans to integrate people locally. For example, I remember reading an article about the golden visa in Morocco and the effects that the golden visa has had. The golden visa being essentially if you can buy a certain amount of real estate or if you can make a certain investment of a certain amount in Morocco, then you receive a visa. And the consequence has been that, there are these very quote unquote Western looking houses sitting there completely empty because the people are no longer inhabiting them. And I think that has something, there's something to say there about the fact that we also found out that, there is an issue with the rent. And the story before wasn't necessarily about Dakhla, but for example, in Dakhla, the representative at the Regional Investment Center was speaking about how the rents in Dakhla were actually as high as the rents in Casablanca, which when you consider the number of people and the potential economic opportunities that are in Casablanca versus Dakhla, it's that could represent a challenge in the future, I think. So the government seems to have some sort of let's say, plan in place for local integration. So ensuring that a majority of the investors are Moroccan and that there is some level of local involvement in the sustainable development programs and projects. Um, However, what I would like to see and what I think is essential is also understanding the perception by the locals of such projects. Because it's also true that such massive projects such as the port or such as anything within the realm of sustainable development, maybe it looks good on the surface and maybe there is an increase in GDP, but as in other areas in Africa, so for example, when I think of, for example, the total energy plants in Cabo Delgado and Mozambique, or for example, the railway that connects Ethiopia through Somaliland to the port, the Berbera port. Like if all of these things that ultimately lead to an increase in GDP, it didn't necessarily lead to contentment on behalf of the locals. And so, what would be interesting and what I think might represent a challenge in the future is ultimately being able to communicate and really fully integrate the local population into such projects, because otherwise, a boom in GDP isn't going to necessarily translate into, let's say, less unrest or more legitimacy amongst the population. So that's something that I would be interested in seeing in the future. Um, in terms of inherent strengths, I think, and opportunities that are there, there's obviously, especially given the geography of the coast, there's a lot of potential there for solar production and also wind production. Dakhla itself is basically located on a peninsula, which gives it enormous wind production opportunities. But at the same time, I repeat, I think it's equally as important to ensure that the locals not only are integrated in terms of numbers and percentages into all of these projects, but also that their perception of these projects and how much is actually going towards them is constantly being monitored for the future.
Thanks, Kaitlyn. Thanks for your answer and the details and information you provided. So, if I'm not mistaken, within 5, 6 minutes, you have to leave us. You have to go, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if Silvia and Matteo agree with me, I would like just 2 words by Kaitlyn regarding the humanitarian situation, and then she can say goodbye to us, and we will go back to Matteo and then to Silvia. It's
Of
fine for you?
course, without
Okay.
problems.
So just, as quick as possible, so I don't want you lose your, meeting, Kaitlyn. So some words regarding the humanitarian situation, particularly in Western Sahara, Tindouf, and the common perception of the refugees in the area. Can you tell us
Yeah,
more?
yeah. So it sort of ties in with what I was saying before about that, the recognition that there is a sort of a nexus between, like, human rights and sustainable development, and that in order to increase the perception that one is improving, the perception that the respect for the other is also improving is necessary at the same time. What I noticed, at least within Dhaka, is that Morocco at this point, and ever since the 2011 constitution, has officially been a multicultural country. For example, the 2011 constitution made Berber, an official language in Morocco, along with French and Arabic, and so that basically made it formally a multicultural country. And what I perceived is that in Dakhla, in the Western Sahara, there is, let's say, how can I say, there is like Sahrawi cultures, or the culture of people coming from that area, the multiple cultures that there are, because there's so many different tribes that it's impossible to all just summarize it into one. Um, is often, I wouldn't say put on display, but it is visible. It's made visible not only in the markets, but also in the artisanal complexes. Um, so and it's also a part of, Morocco's appeal as a tourist destination. It's the cultural appeal that so many tourists go to Morocco, number one, because of its traditional stability in terms of terrorism. Like the United States has always maintained Morocco as a close ally, partially because in the African continent, and it's managed to maintain relative stability and managed to, how can I say, avoid the issues of radicalization, especially compared to other countries in the area. So it, a part of the appeal is also cultural, and so a lot of people come to visit Morocco to just experience the culture, and so that is also seen on display in Dakar and in the Sahara with the Sahrawi culture. So regarding, let's say, Tindouf, and what I can say about the situation there is, in Tindouf, the Moroccan perception is that the refugees in Tindouf are held hostage there essentially by the Algerian government. And there is something to be said about, like, the management of the camps. So, for example, just by the nature of the conflict, the emergency nature of the conflict, despite the fact that it's been going on for 50 years, they're largely dependent on international humanitarian aid, but that humanitarian aid, especially in terms of food, can basically only come in the form of flour. So there's a lot of issues of diversification of diet, for example. So there's this dual issue of both malnutrition and stunting, but then also obesity. So, from a humanitarian perspective, obviously it's not an ideal situation in any case, but there is something to be said about the management of the camps. Um, there are, let's say, in the past, especially during the 70s and 80s, during, like, the active conflict, um, there were cases of disappearances, of forced disappearances of Sahrawi peoples. Now it's a little bit less clear. So some Sahrawi activists, like people who actually vocalize support for independence, um, have spoken about cases of harassment or being blocked from visiting other countries. However, it was never expressly for the purpose of their activism or for using their voice. So in this situation, it's a little bit less clear, like there are still accusations that they're not entirely allowed to, declare independence.
Okay.
But yeah, I said enough. I have to stop. Bye.
No, no, don't worry, don't worry. Okay, okay. Thanks, Kaitlyn. Thanks for the perspective you provide us. Just one small things. Uh, let's say Amazigh people, then Berber, because we don't want to bother anyone,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Just say because when I was last time in Morocco, I made these mistakes so many times that now I'm obsessed by the fact to say Amazigh people because their name is Amazigh. The Berber name is from the Western people, so yeah, Amazigh. But what you say is what is amazing was also interesting. Your thought, your idea, and talking also about the security. One of our analysts, Christian Tracy, wrote about he wrote more about terrorism. He wrote about like the elimination of this Abu Zeifa, who was originally from the Tindouf camps. So this means that radicalization and jihadist propaganda can reach this area. It can find fertile ground, particularly among young generations, because the young people can be disappointed. Also, they are looking for a new opportunity. So you are completely right with your analysis by the fact that the situation unfortunately is not clear and there are some challenges and threats that probably international community should face and try to overcome as soon as possible. Thanks again, Kaitlyn, for being with us, and
Yeah.
I wish just to you a good evening, a good work, and let's meet you another time on Instagram Live. And so, bye bye, Kaitlyn.
Thank you
Bye.
guys very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao,
Bye.
Kate. Bye.
So, Matteo and Silvia. First of all, Matteo, now we have more time, so I want to ask one thing because I know that you and Silvia, you were the first arriving to Morocco, and then Silvia, reached you, and both of you had the opportunity to attend the Simon, which was like the Sahara International Model United Nations. So, if you can tell us more about this, the Simon, this event, and what's your perception, your idea about this, and also why Morocco has been organizing this kind of event for many years.
Well, let's say first of all that such organizations are very important for helping students to internationalize their mind and somehow also their professionalities, because that's the point and that's the goal, to make students all together in order to simulate what happens in the United Nations. Because during these kind of organizations, there's a lot of organization all over the world of this kind, but the special thing of the Simon is made in Morocco. So there's a very interesting link between Moroccan universities and Italian universities in this case. And students from Italy went to Morocco in order to understand how, first of all, the United Nations works. So they had the privilege to, let's say, use their minds to reflect the idea of a specific country. For example, there were students that were interpreting the positions of the United States, and others of the Sudan, and other else of Israel, but also of Italy and Spain, France, and all the countries that are part of the United Nations. So that's the point, to be aware of what a country wants to share to the world. And so a student that is from Italy is using this kind of capabilities to understand and deepen its knowledge of the specific country into the model United Nations. So that's the very first thing to say. The second one is that it's very interesting that the Moroccan authorities wants to make a link with Italy. I think that this is because, especially, there's a special relation between our countries, because in Italy we have a big community of Moroccan people living in our country. So there are also students of second generations Moroccans that went to Italy in the past, but now they have children. Those children are grown up, and so they are 20, 21, 22 years old, enrolled in universities, and now they can be a good representatives of the Moroccans in Italy, but like Italians that are going back to Morocco and to share and to help also the Italian students to better understand the country. So that's very interesting, I think, and very special for the students because it's a great opportunity. All these kind of opportunities are very important to push, especially the ideas that a world where the United Nations work, it's good. But unfortunately, we know that the United Nations doesn't work very well, especially in this period. So anyway, that's another topic.
So let's say this is thanks for describing us also hold this event, this model. But don't you think both of you, and this is a question both for you, Matteo, but also for Silvia, because this is part of the famous cultural diplomacy which can allow Morocco to promote also its stance among some European countries, the international actors, and push them to recognize the region of Western Sahara as part of the southern Morocco. Don't you think that could be part of cultural diplomacy or something like that? So first Matteo and then Silvia.
Absolutely, you are definitely true saying that. It's somehow an instrument that helps the Moroccan authorities to push or to put pressures on the Italian authorities to somehow influence their position on this issue. But when a country believes for real on cultural diplomacy, I think that the point is that the cultural relation is an issue, but the respect of international law is another issue. So we must stand firm on this. I think that it's very important to do that. So that's for sure an idea that the Moroccan authorities have to do this kind of pressure on countries such as Italy in this case. But a country like Italy has to stand firm to international law. That's my opinion.
Silvia?
Well, yeah, actually, I share your same idea. Absolutely agree with you. Of course, Italy is one target country, is a G7 country, a European country, and I think they were trying also to obtain, not through Simone only, but of course to gain some sympathy also in Italian, among Italians, to gain the recognition of the Moroccan rule over Western Sahara, which they were openly seeking. I mean, we asked them directly, and we will share opinion with the Moroccan who organized the event. On the other side, I think they are trying to create a young generation of very skilled diplomats that will, in the near future, play a major role in important organizations such as the United Nations, European Union, the World Food Programme, and whatever. And of course, they will pursue the Moroccan interest. And Morocco is trying really to modernize its strategy. And he understood that he had to play a role in the Western arenas, the vital one for its to attract investment, to have more political, to increase political stature. And I think that in this regard, they are preparing their youth, the young generation, so they were really prepared. They could speak perfectly English. They were prepared about international issues, and I mean, it was. I think it's really smart. Indeed, recently, this is also interesting. The king. This is part of this latest strategy of the kingdom. They call back from all the private sector all around Europe, or from the United States, experts in the different fields, from the banking, financial field, infrastructure field, and they call them back to Morocco to contribute to the country development.
So
they
we're
have
talking
understood.
about Moroccan citizens, yes?
Moroccan citizens,
Okay.
yes, who work, in the banking system, maybe in Great Britain or maybe in the US,
Okay.
and they're calling them back because, of course, they are really skilled and they have a lot of experience in the Western world, and they can bring back this experience to Morocco. And I think this was a very smart choice.
interesting, so interesting. And they'll try to, to exploit the experience of Moroccan citizens who worked abroad and now to bring back. As far as I understood, when you visited the investment center, investment agency of Dakhla province, the Dakhla region, probably one of the manager, if I'm not mistaken, Silvia was one person who in the past used to work in Great Britain and France, right, Silvia?
Yes, yes, in the banking sector.
Okay, so interesting, so interesting. So, but when we talk about, before Matteo mentioned Italy-Morocco relations, say that, of course, Moroccan community is very important in Italy and also the relation between the parties. But when we look also at the geopolitics, so we know that because of Ukraine conflict and the current situation in the world, Italy was looking for new partners for the natural gas, and Algeria became really an important asset. So, but we know that since 2023, Algeria and Morocco, closed any kind of relations. They had really a confrontation, and at one point, some experts also discussed the fact that could be a conflict between these two parties, the two countries, which have invested a huge part of their budget also in the military field. So first to Matteo and then to Silvia, what do you think about, so if we will have a sort of confrontation between Morocco and Algeria, I'm not talking just a conflict, but also a hard confrontation in diplomatic way, economic way, how this can affect also Italy, and in which way Italy can try, if it has the opportunity to mediate between the parties?
Well, since Italy has not taken a clear position, for example, in the Saharan, the Western Saharan issue, I think that it could be like the perfect player to help the countries to overcome their disputes. I think that it's very important to, and also, it could be a rebirth for Italian, I would say, historically position in the Mediterranean, to be a country that used to listen to the Arab country, and to the country of the Mediterranean. It's a role that has somehow lost in the last decade. From the NATO attack towards Libya, Italy has lost somehow this kind of position. So in the worst case scenario, this could happen between Morocco and Algeria. I think Italy could play a very important role in this case, but we hope everyone, I think that this won't happen, because it will be another mess that will add other mess on the mess already existing in the northern part of Africa and on the Mediterranean, the large Mediterranean area, let's say so. So going back to your question, I think Italy could play a good role in this, especially because it has not recognized openly the Western Sahara, has relations with Algeria, but also, of course, open and close relations with Morocco because of the community we have in Italy of Moroccan people, but also because the heritage we share in common because of historical issues. And we really understand how the millennium historical heritage of Morocco is important, such as it's important ours. So I think that that's an asset for Italy to be a player for peace, maybe in the future.
Thanks, Matteo. Silvia, I would like that you answer this same question, but I do want to add just one thing, that before you analyze the economic aspect, the economic opportunities of Morocco, and also we know that Morocco, there is not just the interest of European country, but also China and Russia are interested in developing like the Dakhla province, the Dakhla region, and the port. And we know also that in Algeria, Russia plays an important role providing weapons and also supporting the country in the energy field. So if we put also these layers, these complex layers to the situation, what's your perception, Silvia?
Well, this was my answer, actually.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry. So try to develop the answer. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was interesting that you cite the Ukrainian conflict. Indeed, there is an aspect connected to the Ukrainian conflict as part of the reason why Morocco is gaining more and more consensus among European countries is because, of course, Morocco is a US ally, a NATO ally, Israel ally. so it's perceived, you know, as a more Western-oriented country. When it comes to Algeria, Algeria refused to withdraw from its agreement with Russia in the energy field or weapon delivery and so on. And for this reason, many European countries were complaining with Algeria and were distancing themselves from Algeria. When it comes to Italy, of course, we have a need. We have to follow our interest. It's not only what is in our interest, but what we really need. The energy diversification, at some point, it was not a choice. We had to look for gas. Of course, the gas we take from Azerbaijan is not enough to cover our internal demand. And so we rely on Algeria, not only on Algeria, of course, but still, I mean, other European countries were, for example, relying on Qatar, and we find a reliable partner in Algeria. So it is not a viable choice for us right now to cut relation with Algeria. On the other side, we have a huge Moroccan community in Italy, in Rome. I think it's the first foreign community or the second largest one, so a very important one. So I know for sure that our government wants to maintain good relations, but when it comes to, for example, to recognition of Western Sahara, I think that they will be very careful in making this choice, or at least I think that it will take time. Well, when it comes to the European Union, I think that Italy has also proven to have some independent choices. I remember clearly that a few months ago, when we decided to make an agreement with Tunisia, the European Union, Brussels, was not so enthusiastic about this choice, but at the end, Italy explained why we need this agreement, and indeed, it was important. And I think that we didn't mention, by the way, regarding Morocco and regarding Western Sahara, the issue of migrants, which is something that we also have the chance to, let's say, to investigate while we were there.
Yes, Silvia. So this was the other question that I wanted
Okay.
to ask you. But so in
So
this
clearly
case,
we work together.
no, in this case, the followers can understand that. First of all, we work together. Secondly, that we have the same framework and analysis, probably because we develop our framework and analysis. And a small advertisement, if you want to learn more about this, we have a course for you on June 29th. So just ask more information. So, but just to say that, okay, the migrants are really an important issue, and so how Morocco is managing this situation and in which way it can affect the country. So first Matteo, then Silvia, or I don't know if Silvia will answer before because she came up with the question,
Go ahead,
the issues.
Silvia, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, actually, we visited in Dakhla, the Center for Human Rights, and following we visited an industry, a facility, fishery-related industry, and we both noticed, both I and Matteo, that mainly people working there were African people coming from African countries, so not Amazigh, not Arabs. And indeed, we asked, and they told us that a lot of migrants are arriving in Western Sahara, coming from several Sahel countries or Africa country, and which is very interesting that they burn their documents and they all declare to be from Senegal. This happened because Morocco has an agreement on migrants coming from Senegal, and so they hope to gain immediately the citizenship through, saying that they are from Senegal. Of course, they are not all from this country. And there is like a gap in the treatment between the Sahrawi people coming maybe from Tindouf camp, so from the area controlled by the Polisario Front, and people coming from African countries. If you come from the Tindouf camp, you immediately, as soon as you arrive, get the Moroccan citizenship. If you come from an African country, it's not so easy. And mostly these people want to reach Europe, of course, but they remain stuck in Morocco. And so at the end, they are employed in some local industry as the fishery related, and of course this is a trend which is probably which will probably tend to increase given the destabilization that we are experiencing in North Africa and the entire Sahel region.
Okay, Thanks, Silvia. Matteo, would you like to add something more?
I mean, what's interesting is that, when migrant people come to Morocco, they are somehow immediately employed, so they have a permission to work into the country. It's an interesting way to manage the migrant issues, because it's, I think, very, very useful even for the country, but also for the migrant it's themselves, because they are somehow employed, and so they can work and live a proper life with quite dignity. So I think that that's something maybe also in Italy we should learn from Morocco in this case.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
if I can add just one small thing, which I think it's interesting, in case of a future referendum, the fact that in the southern province of Morocco, as Rabat call it, or Western Sahara, the disputed territories, the fact that people from other countries are arriving, this will change the demography, sorry, of the area. And in case of a referendum where everyone is allowed to vote, this may change, of course, the results.
Yeah, thanks for this information. This is one of the reasons why there are many positions regarding the referendum. Who has the right to vote is just like people. Also, it's not easy because in theory the referendum should, everyone in the region should vote. But if we look also how the demography of the region has changed during the years, and probably this is one of the reasons why we are stuck with this, with this situation. I have just the last question. Probably is more, I don't, it's provocation, something like that, because before Matteo mentioned the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and we know that Morocco has this, cooperation with Israel, also in the defense field, defense sector, but we know there is a Palestinian community in Morocco, and for instance, when I was 2 years ago probably was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, in Morocco, and I was also in Rabat. There was a demonstration in front of the parliament because at that time Rabat was reaching a deal to open the diplomatic mission of Israel in the capital. So, according to your perception, also your idea, how the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and also Morocco's stance regarding Israel can influence local population, and if in some situation, in some remote area, the Palestinian cause can also be exploited by some Islamist or terrorist groups to radicalize people and to create an opposition against the central authority. I know it's a tough question, but it was something that I was thinking. So Matteo first, and then Silvia.
Well, as far as I've understood, people in Morocco is absolutely pro-Palestine in this case, but of course the authorities are not pro-Palestine in this specific moment. I mean, they are closing and reaching even more agreements with Israel. They even told us that they are trying to gain, the technologies from Israel in order to use the water in a proper way, since they have this kind of technology in order to have themselves in with this issue that is very important for Morocco. Is facing important droughts and things like that. But and even as far as I've understood, being there, I heard also that sometimes it has happened that people protesting for the relationship between Morocco and Israel, or even for what is happening right now in Gaza, they were silenced during this protest. So I think that it's a very important issue that the local population and the public opinion believe that they have to be pro-Palestine, but the authorities actually are not. So I think this is a gap that somehow has to be filled. I don't know how, but I think it's very, very important to do it, because otherwise in the future there could be even more protests. Actually, I don't know how to answer for the part of your question, so I just give the chance to Silvia to do it.
Well, actually, it was cute because at the Simon, a lot of Moroccan students were wearing the keffiyeh, the symbol of Palestine, of the Palestinian people. And we asked them about this issue, and we find out, which is not that much covered by international media actually, that the university among all over Morocco are experiencing the same pro-Palestine movement that we see every day in the United States, in Europe, and in other countries around the world. So this is very interesting. Of course, it's not surprising that Morocco decided not to make some like tough sentence in favor of Palestine or against Israel. It's a strategic ally, and of course, being the US a strategic ally, the same way you are influenced also not to let's say not to support Palestine. And indeed, I have also to admit that Palestine has not strategic interest to offer. The only thing maybe could be the gas in front of Gaza, but Israel is already controlling it. So from a government point of view, of course, it is of major advantage to support Israel. But when it comes to the population, the situation is different. Anyway, I could like make a provocation, let's say this. Recently, I have read that Bahrain, Oman, and other countries are turning to Russia to resolve the issue among Palestine and Israel, not only because Russia, of course, has a strong presence through its citizens in Israel, but also because they feel that the United States are like staunchly on Israeli side. And for this reason, they think that the US cannot no longer be a reliable mediator in this issue. So many countries are turning to Russia. And I think that this might lead to some friction among the Arab League countries. So Morocco, maybe of the US side, Jordan, the US side, but other countries relying more on Russia, on China, on other international players.
Thanks, Silvia. Thanks. So we are at the end of this Instagram Live. It was a great pleasure to have both of you, Silvia, Managing Director of SpecialEurasia, and Matteo Meloni, and the Editor-in-Chief of TocToc Sardegna. Before we had for the first half of the Instagram Live also Kaitlyn Rabe, who is the Vice President of Mondo Internazionale. All our guests had the opportunity to visit recently. Was at the end of April, at the first week or first 10 days, if I'm not mistaken, on May 2024, Agadir, Dakhla, the Dakhla region and province. Also had the opportunity to talk with with a local representative. If you want to discover more about Morocco, you can find on the SpecialEurasia platform. We produce some reports as SWOT analysis. Also have a couple of podcasts. One was the interview and the meeting with Munir Houari, who is the manager of the investment agents of Dakhla province, who described also the investment opportunities in the region. And we had also a conversation with Yasmin Barka, a PhD candidate and an analyst who discussed the Morocco-Algeria's relation. You can find on our platform these two podcasts. So, first of all, thanks, Matteo. You were an amazing guest and speaker. Thanks for your time to be with us.
Thanks to you, Giuliano. Thanks to you, Silvia. It was a pleasure being with you today.
And, last but not the least, thanks, Silvia, for your comments and for your insights, and also to share the fact that we share the same geopolitical structure and framework analysis. Thanks, Silvia.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Matteo. Thank you, Giuliano.
So, thanks to all our listeners, all the people who attend this event, our followers. It was our great pleasure, and I wish you a good evening, a good night. It depends where you are visit, and let's meet again in future Instagram Live on SpecialEurasia. Bye bye.